Here we go again. Time for another video. Let's just clear that first of all. Bring that back over here. Okay, I think we are ready to roll. So an arc, this thing that we're being asked to find now, is just part of a circle. It's part of the circumference of the circle. So that bit that we've got highlighted in orange here is an arc that would correspond to some whole circle if we drew it all the way around. So as we want to find the length of that arc, and the arc is just part of the circumference, we're effectively looking to calculate something to do with the circumference of the circle. So the best place to start with this problem is to remind ourselves that the circumference of a circle is equal to 2 pi multiplied by the radius. And that formula is going to be how we think about solving this problem. So it's going to be 2 pi times the radius. We could start by filling that in on a calculation then. So we'll have 2 pi multiplied by our radius, which is 8, we've been told. That's the radius of what would be our whole circle if we had it there. So that's all well and good, but that calculation is going to give us the circumference. It's going to give us the length around the whole circle, the circumference of it. We don't want the whole circle, we only want some part of it. And the amount that we want, the part that we want, the clue comes from this angle that we've been given. So we're saying that we're taking this wedge shape, this part of the circle, which has a total angle of 60 degrees. And if we recall that the angle in an entire circle is 360 degrees, what we're saying is the part of the circle we want is 60 degrees worth of the circle out of the full 360 degrees. And writing it like that gives us the fraction of the circle that we're interested in. Now we can usually work to simplify this fraction slightly. Here can you see we can divide top and bottom of the fraction by 10. I'll just cross out those zeros there. And then 6 over 36 we can divide top and bottom again by 6. And 6 divided by 6 will give us 1. And 36 divided by 6 will give us 6. So 60 out of 360 is actually just 1/6. We're talking 1/6 of this whole circle here. So that's the final part of our calculation, and if 2 pi times 8 is the distance around the whole circle, then for our arc, the distance is going to be 1/6 of that. And now we've got a calculation that we can do, and we can just work that out. At this stage, we could potentially stick that into our calculator, but usually it's best to try and simplify any expression that you've got as far as possible by hand before putting it into the calculator. As soon as you put calculations into the calculator, you don't know what's happening to them. You type some numbers in, the calculator does some thinking, and then it spits out an answer. But you don't know for certain whether or not you've made any mistakes or the calculator's interpreted it in a different way to what you were expecting. So if you can simplify what you're putting into the calculator, you reduce that risk. So that's what we're going to do first of all. And looking at this, as we've done in previous questions, I think I'm going to stick the pi to the end of the calculation. Remember, this is all multiplied together. It's 1/6 multiplied by 2 multiplied by pi. In fact, we can write that in there, multiplied by 8. And because it's all multiplications, I can rearrange them however I like. So I could write instead 1/6 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 8 multiplied by pi. And that's nice because then I can see that I've got 2 times 8 there. Which is just 16, and then multiply by pi. And if I've got 1/6 multiplied by 16, we're multiplying with fractions now. Remember that we can write 16 as 16 over 1. That's exactly the same number. And then when we're multiplying fractions, we multiply the tops together, the numerators. So that'll be 1 times 16, which is 16. And we multiply the bottoms together, the denominators. So that's 6 times 1 is 6. And then multiply by pi as we had before. From there, we can now look to simplify the fraction a bit. So 16 over 6, we can divide top and bottom by 2, and that's going to give us 8 over 3 lots of pi. And having done that, having worked through those steps, we've now got something much easier to put into our calculator, so we're much less likely to make mistakes with that. So pulling out my calculator then, here we go. So we want to do 8 over 3 pi. You might have a calculator that can do fractions as an actual button. I don't on this calculator, but it's still easy to do that 8 over 3, because remember, the fraction sign, that line there just means division, so it's 8 divided by 3. So I can go 8 divided by 3, and then multiplied by pi is what I've done with that fraction. So multiply by pi, and that will give me an answer of, there we go, 8.3775. We'll round that to 8.38, I think. So let's write that in here. Equals 8.38, and because the arc is a length and we're working in centimeters, 8.38 centimeters is our answer. Interesting thing to note here then, that 8.38, obviously that's very close to the 8 that we've got up here. Remember, that's because pi is approximately 3, it's 3.141-ish. So if we've done a division by 3 and then a multiplication by 3, we're going to get pretty close back to the 8 that we had originally. But that's just an interesting aside. So there's our answer for the length of that arc. In this example, we want to work out the area of a sector. So arcs and sectors are pretty much the same thing. We're still talking about part of a circle, but whereas the arc is part of that circumference, part of the length around the edge of the circle, a sector is part of the area of the circle. It's part of the actual shape that we're making here, which is why we're calculating area here, and for our arc we were calculating length. But the process is going to be exactly the same. The concept is as we had it before. We're effectively imagining that we had a whole circle and doing a calculation with that, and then we just want to find out what fraction of the whole circle we're talking about. So if we're going to work with area, we can remind ourselves that the area of a circle is equal to, no, this is all going to break now. Stop it. So if we want to work with the area of a circle, we can remind ourselves that the area is equal to pi r squared. That's our formula that we have. So that'll be a nice starting point for us for creating our formula here. And we also want to see what fraction of the circle we want. And again, we'll look at the degrees for our sector here, this angle here. So that's 110 degrees for our sector out of the total 360 degrees in the circle. And we'll just look to simplify this fraction slightly. Can't do much with it, but we can divide top and bottom by 10 to give 11/36 as our fraction. We can bring these two ideas together then to get the formula for the area of this sector. So it's going to be the area of the whole circle, so that's pi multiplied by the radius of 11 squared, and then it's going to be just 11/36 of that whole circle. So this fraction of the area of the circle. And again, now we've got the calculation. We could just stick it in our calculator at this point, but we'll see if we can tidy it up a little bit to make it easier and safer to put into our calculator. So again, as I did before, let's look at bringing all the numbers together first of all. So we've got that 11 squared here. And 11 squared, I can do that calculation now. 11 squared is 121. It's worth remembering that. So there's the 11 squared, and then multiply by pi on the end. Now I can bring this fraction and that number together. Remember again, it's 121 over 1 if we're going to look at that as being a fraction. So on the top we have 11 times 121. We could do this in the calculator now, or you could know actually 11 times 11 squared, which is that 121, is 11 cubed. And 11 cubed is 1,331. Again, it's quite nice to remember that. It speeds up these calculations, although you could put that in the calculator just as happily. On the bottom, 36 times 1 will just be 36. And then that's multiplied by pi, as we had before. I don't think that fraction is going to simplify, so I think we will put this in the calculator now. So bringing my calculator back up. I can't see it. Let's just slide that over there. So we've got, for my fraction, 1,331 divided by 36. That gets me the fraction done so far. And then multiply that by pi. And then I'll have my answer, 116.15. We'll round that to. So that's 116.15. And this is the area of the sector. We're working in centimetres again, so the answer is going to be, and that's the area of the sector. We're working in centimetres again, so that's going to be for area, centimetres squared for our answer. Sweet.